Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second session of Making It Work, our new webinar series from Princeton Arts alumni. I'm Pilar Castro-Kiltz, founder of Princeton Arts Alumni, or PA2, as we call it for short, and we are so happy to have you here today. The Making It Work series was created to answer the question that I and other PA2 members had been asking ourselves recently, which is, how's that person making it work? How are they balancing creative work, life? So we wanted to reach out to some people and ask them that question and share the answers with others. So this session is titled Applied Humanities, and we have some incredible experts in the humanities here to discuss that balance with you today. And in doing so, we hope to inspire those who have studied arts and letters, as many of us have, to think expansively about the kinds of careers that they might find purpose and fulfillment in. But first, I want to let you know that this session is being recorded, attendees, panelists, and will be shared as part of a growing library of resources that PA2 is building over the course of the next year as part of our mission to share resources for a resilient arts landscape with other members of the Princeton University arts community and the world beyond that. So be sure that you're subscribed to our newsletter and socials, find out more about that, and be part of future programming and our mission. I will hand it over to Victoria Gruenberg to introduce us today to today's panel. Over to you, Victoria.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here, panelists and participants. So today, Pilar will be our moderator, but to give you an idea of the structure of our panel, we're going to go through 3 acts. First, what panelists have loved about their careers and the choices that they've made in this humanistic path. Second, what they have learned. And third, what to look out for if you're pursuing a similar path. So love, learn, look out for. And then we'll have some time for questions. We have some questions collected from the form when you all registered, but please feel free to drop additional questions into the Q&A. I already see a couple there, so it's great that we know how to use that, but please feel free to drop questions that occur to you as we continue. And here's a little bit about each of your panelists. So Will Plunkett is a national account manager for Macmillan Publishers, managing relationships with retailers like Amazon, Apple, Google, and Barnes & Noble, driving sales growth, brand awareness, and product visibility. While specializing in digital sales, Will also has a background in in-stock management, optimizing online sales presence, and managing and forecasting inventory levels for print books, both adults and children's. Prior to 2020, he worked at A&O Shearman as a senior business analyst before transitioning from law into a career in publishing. At Princeton, Will concentrated in English with certificates in linguistics and theater. Charlotte is a sales and operations leader, educational consultant, and mentor for humanities PhDs pivoting into industry. She holds a PhD in French literature from Princeton and transitioned from a tenure-track faculty position at Gettysburg College to senior leadership roles in edtech and consulting, including founding leadership at a VC-backed firm. She specializes in sales, operations, and go-to-market strategy, helping small edtech companies successfully scale. And she'll talk a little bit more about what she specifically does in her mentoring of PhD students and folks with any amount of a PhD. Genevieve Alate-Papo is an assistant professor of music at Brown University. She completed her PhD in the Department of Music at Princeton in May 2024. While at Princeton, she was a graduate fellow at the Princeton Institute for International and Regional Studies and a Grad Future Social Impact Fellow. Genevieve has an MPhil in ethnomusicology and composition, as well as a BA in music and sociology from the University of Ghana. She is the founder and host of the Black Music Nomad podcast. She is also a composer, and her compositions have been performed in Ghana, Greece, the US, and Nigeria. And last but not least, Kurt Adams is a marketer working in the fintech sector, where he helps consumers navigate the world of personal finance. He's currently working on a book about the history of credit card rewards and frequent flyer miles, exploring who benefits from and who pays for these loyalty programs. Kurt earned his PhD in religion with a focus on American religious history and is actively involved in the Princeton alumni community. He volunteers with Graduate Alumni Annual Giving and is a new member of the APGA board. So welcome all. As I said, Pilar will be talking us through those 3 acts what we loved, what we learned, what to look out for, and I will be monitoring the Q&A.
Thank you, Victoria. And thank you, panelists. What a collection of experiences we have here. So I am going to follow our framework. Sometimes it's good to keep things simple. I suspect that all of us could have a coffee and talk for many, many minutes, possibly hours, on what you've done in your journey here. So let's start with what you've loved about your career. I'm almost tempted to say what you love about your current job, just to hone it in even more, because a career is an awfully big thing. And maybe we can zoom out to career next. And we're going to go in reverse order of bios. And I'm going to ask Kurt, tell us, what do you love?
What I love about my current role or job is that I it- I work for a startup company called Going, which is a travel app, and I get to teach our members all about the world of points and miles. So I love that I get to help our members learn how to use their points to see the world. One thing that I really love about this work is that I use all of the skills that I developed at Princeton in my daily job. I am teaching, I am writing, I am explaining kind of complex concepts. There, sure, it's different than the world of religion or history, but it is still those same skills.
Okay, more on that later of how we connect. I think I can hear the Office of Alumni Engagement loving this. I'm like, wait, you used your Princeton education in the future? Tell us more. So I'll pass it over to Genevieve. What do you love about your job right now, Genevieve?
Yeah, for my job right now, I really love the fact that I get to sort of explore and interweave my different skills. I'm sort of given some sort of freedom. So I'm just not teaching and doing research. So for example, the podcast that I started while I was at Princeton, Black Music Nomad podcast, every semester I work with two students on the podcast. So I'm sort of mentoring them, working with them in terms of teaching them podcasting skills, research skills, audio editing, and that's something that I just love doing. I think that's one of the best part of the jobs for me.
Okay, Charlotte, you're next.
Yeah, I was thinking about this question. I find it actually difficult to answer because there's a lot that I love, but trying to figure out how to kind of distill that is difficult. I think that my job is so different. I'm in sales, and I actually quite purposefully don't talk about the name of my current company because I'm under like 100 non-competes from switching jobs, which has been kind of a nightmare to navigate, and I'm happy to talk about that at some point. But yeah, it's really very different, I feel, than what I did as a professor and as a PhD candidate. What I like, though, that's similar is that every day is different. I remember as a PhD, sure, you had the days teaching, but you could focus on different things. You could work on your, at your own pace. You could do your work at the library at night. And so you can really kind of run your own life in a way. And I've been quite purposeful about that in my career transition. So I'm remote and I'm in sales, which means that I work all the time, kind of like a PhD, but also when I want. So it's kind of amazing. So that's what I really like about my job. And then I like being also, I'm head of sales. So I kind of like rule the roost. And I like that. I like being able to like get things in motion and do things the right way. So that's my type A personality. So that's my long answer.
We have a whole hour, so I welcome long answers. I think people are here for information. Will, wrap us up on what you love about your job.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say I am also remote and in sales, and I also will say that I am loving it. I will say we'll never go back. But what I love about my job, I really love how creative I'm allowed to be. I think when I first joined uh publishing from law, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, and publishing was the first thing kind of that bit. And then it was in sales, and I wasn't quite sure, how creative that would be. And it turns out a lot. So what I'm currently doing, I'm like the ebook manager for some of our big ebook accounts, and we get to pitch some of the biggest books of the year to all these different accounts, and we get to read them, and we get to really kind of come up with, you're kind of writing mini essays for your marketing pitches probably 3 times a year in a way that's maybe grossly very fun. And it definitely feels like I'm using so much of what I learned at Princeton in terms of, well, specifically from the English department, but also, through theater and through, the power of storytelling, of different things, of changing your story to get to a certain audience. And so I will say that creativity, it's a long answer. Creativity is the part that I wasn't expecting to really have in this job. And I'm very thankful for it.
So creativity sounds like a thread. We also have this thread of teaching. It sounds like all of you are doing some element, whether it's ruling the roost of a marketing of a sales team, or even users. Kurt, you're talking about educating people on this, and Genevieve, as a professor, you are actively educating people often. But I would imagine also through your podcast, perhaps there's some element of engagement and education. That's a great segue to learning. What are you learning in the course of your career? And I think I'd like to actually hone this into crafting your career. So take us from like, what do you love in your job, to what have you learned over the years of after you've left your whatever was your last point of education, whether it's undergrad or grad school. What have you learned about crafting a career and some of the choices you've made along the way? I'm seeing Charlotte nodding, so I'm going to pass to her first.
So many learnings, it's crazy. It's just insane. Like 5 years ago, I was at Gettysburg College and I wasn't very happy there, so I left. And I was working for a startup right after that, and then I bounced around to like 3, 4 places. Which, there's different kind of opinions on moving around quickly. In sales, it's okay. But I have found there is nothing more valuable, and I've been able to do this in switching around so much, as your network. And I found that as an academic, I was very much in isolation and I worked that way. And obviously, you don't have to be as a PhD, right? You don't have to be. But I was, spending long hours at the library, writing and all of that. And as a professor, I didn't necessarily feel that I needed to build a network, although I think that was wrong looking back. But now I have found that you can help so many people and you can get so much help and you can get so much valuable insight and you can make all these little connections that can then lead you and propel you into literally like a new job. And that's happened with me. And it's been unexpected. So I think for me, it's kind of that networking, that talking to people, being open, wanting to learn has been a major learning for me. And then the other thing that I would mention is, and I recently posted about LinkedIn, on LinkedIn about this, is as a PhD, I really looked up to my advisor. And so I kind of was always like, yes, yes, I'll do this. Yes, yes, I'll do that. As a professor, I had the chair of the department. It was kind of the same thing, and having trouble, you learn in industry to manage up. And so it's something that I've learned that I wish I knew 5 years ago going into a career, that they don't just want you to say yes, your managers and your bosses. They really want you to come in and solve a problem. So they really need you to kind of speak up and do the things and take risks. So I think those two things have been learnings for me.
Okay. Anybody want to take it next of learning in the crafting of a career? We're hearing networking and managing up, taking risks.
I can jump in after that. There's so much with what Charlotte said that I just resonate with. Certainly, like the importance of networking. I feel like that has been so important, especially pivoting from religious studies to like the financial sector and marketing. But one thing that I think was a learning for me really was that in industry, and even in the nonprofit sector, done is better than perfect. I think that um, in academia and certainly with a dissertation, you are writing and writing and revising and getting more feedback and revising it again and making sure every single footnote is perfect. And that's important. And that because that's how scholarship is produced. But in industry, there's time constraints and a project has to be done in a week or less than that. And it's about doing the best work you can do within that finite amount of time. And I think that goes to Charlotte's point about kind of managing up and being like, okay, well, yes, I can do this, but these are the constraints that I'm working in.
I wonder if I can actually pass it to Genevieve, who is in academia, but then also doing some like kind of entrepreneurial work as a composer. You are your own business there, and then also you work with your podcast. How are you finding those two, or all three of those, kind of existing at once as you craft your career?
So I think obviously I'm at the beginning of my career, right? It's just been a year here, but I think a lot of the things that I learned were probably from the last 3 years of grad school. That, even thinking about academia doesn't have to be this one thing where it's this structure where it's like, you publish the articles, you do the um write for journals, you finish a dissertation and you teach. I think, thinking about those people who sort of write stuff for public facing scholarship, thinking about the people who are collaborating with industry and nonprofit organizations, especially, with popular music, the kind of stuff that I do. Um, Sort of finding the interface between academia and non-academic organizations. Also, the different modes of circulating research, which is blogs, podcasts, op-eds, online articles. Sometimes you have something to say to people beyond academia. Most of them probably don't have access or are not reading this academic journal. So having this outlet to sort of like share it through podcast, op-eds, online articles, and also the skills, right? We've talked about networking, which is something that I also had to learn in grad school as well. And the transferable skills that you have in academia that you can use, talk about project management, talk about research, which leads to sort of like strategy and analysis, storytelling, narrative framing, like really understanding. I feel like for a lot of grad students, they think they can work beyond academia, but they do have the skills, but it's not framed from them within the context of non-academic roles. So that was something that I, learned in the last 3 years of grad school. So, yeah.
I have many thoughts on storytelling, just given my background and some of what I'm doing, but I'm going to pass it to Will because I'm the moderator and not a panelist.
I will say, um, good enough is better than perfect is something that really, really resonates with me, as does networking. And I think most importantly, something that I think is a lesson that I have to keep reminding myself and have to keep learning, is that your career isn't necessarily like linear, in that sometimes I think we just, at least I'm not sure where this eventually started. We were taught this idea of you know your career only moves forward or backward. That if you're not, that if you're in the wrong spot, you're actually a step behind where you should be. You're not where your peers are. It is kind of this competitive atmosphere. I don't know. It felt very common in, in college, and I think something that took a long time is that to realize sometimes you know your career can be very long. It's never too late to pivot into something that can be totally new. I don't know. I try not to, the idea of kind of the sunk cost fallacy of that, I've spent so much time in here anyway, it doesn't make sense to switch or to try something new. And that, I guess that's the lesson, in terms of not necessarily having a goal of reaching a certain level or getting into a certain thing, but it's more like, what do I want to try next? What do if is this fulfilling for me, and if it's not, where is my next step to go? And it doesn't necessarily be just because it's new doesn't mean it's backward. I think that's been a lesson that I've tried to remind myself of.
Any responses to that, Charlotte or Kurt?
Yeah, for sure. I know exactly what you mean about the nonlinear. I was a professor and I like to be pretty transparent about things. So I was making like 73,000 a year in my third year. And this ed tech job came up and I was going to be the fourth employee and I hated my job. Like as a professor, I worked towards it for 10 years, by the way. And I was convinced it was the right thing for me. And I got there and I was like, I hate this. And that's actually really hard to come to terms with. That was really weird because I was lucky enough to even get the job. So it was like very weird. So, anyways, I was like, this isn't right for me. And then I had taught somebody at Princeton in a feminism course. And she reached out to me. She said, I started this startup. Come work for me. And I was like, let's do it. So I jumped ship and I cut my salary enormously. I went from 74 to 50K. And I was like, I don't care. This is a risk I'm willing to take. This feels right. And then all these things happen when you're at startups. And then people love recruiting from startups as well. So you actually have a lot of opportunities that open up to you. So I do recommend startups. They're great for PhDs, I think. But the point is that it was really non-linear. I've gone like back and forth. I've kind of, taken these big plunges into things that, what I was doing at the startup was customer service, essentially, in a way. And I had been a professor. So it was really kind of weird, but totally worth it because it's gotten me very, very far with where I am now. So I couldn't agree more with that. That's it.
I agree too. I think the piece about careers not being linear and like that so resonates with me. And even just today, I was talking to somebody not at my company, and he was like, you have a PhD, like what is that? And I love to whenever somebody remarks about that, I love just to have that conversation. And so I laugh and I usually say like, oh yeah, isn't that like the most traditional way to come to industry or marketing? And it's an opportunity to then kind of tell them about like, yeah, I really thought I wanted to be a scholar and I loved doing the research, but I just found that it wasn't the right pace for me, the right lifestyle. And then like I went into education, like at a charter school immediately after graduation, and that was okay. And I learned some things, but it wasn't perfect. But that was like the first step into something different. And I think that each step for me has been like more of like, like it's like experimentation. It's like, oh, okay, like this is cool. Like I like this piece. I don't like this piece, but how can I take the piece that I like and then kind of pivot from there?
So it sounds like courage might have been involved for many of you as you navigate change. Is that accurate? Like, what was this moment of leap? There's this turning point that some of you are speaking of saying, I'm going to go for it. Especially for some of our our attendees who are maybe listening and thinking of taking that jump. They're feeling dissatisfied where they are and they want to make a change. What were some of those signals? I think that's actually my question. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Kurt, you mentioned experimentation. So for any of you, what was the signal for you that it was time to make a change or time to explore that next opportunity? Yes, I'm asking you to be vulnerable here. I realize this is like sort of a
I guess I think for me, what I kind of realized was that, I do think we have this idea. I'm not sure if this was just, of our generation, of this idea that, you have to find your dream job and that, and if you aren't there, you're doing something wrong. Um, but and I think there's a healthier balance, whereas like like definitely can love your job, and you definitely can like your job. You also can dislike your job and really have a really fulfilling life. But I think it's very, at least for me, it's very hard to hate your job and really enjoy the other things in my life. So I think it got to a point where I was there, where I essentially was saying, you know, I'm not really finding anything really redeeming. This next step is scary, but even if I go and I find out that this also, you know, isn't a fit, great. Now I know another thing that I don't like, that of reframing it as saying, you know, learning what you do like is super helpful, but also you know, learning what you don't is also kind of equally informative, and not framing it as like, oh, I made a mistake. No, I learned something new by doing that.
I would say, for those that are current grad students right now who are listening, I would say like start exploring while you're in grad school, start looking out while you're in grad school. That was something that happened in my third year. I remember just saying, I'm done. I'm done with academia. And I had 3 years to really explore non-academic roles and realized that I wanted to stay in academia, but have conversations with the industry and with nonprofits and collaborate. I sort of tailored what I wanted for myself. But it allowed me, I think the Grad Futures program allowed me to really explore, and the winter sessions as well. We went on trips, to Sirius XM. So I really was in there learning about what life would be like. And ultimately, I decided to do something that worked for me, which is academia, but with conversations. I love the flexibility of academia, but having conversations with the industry and nonprofit organizations, and collaborated with them when I can. And also including them, sort of like having that conversation with them. I think that's the kind of work that I'm doing, sort of being an interface between academia and, the industry. Yeah.
So it's a little bit about charting your own path. And it sounds like having an open mind. All of you are talking about, actually, it's not open mind, it's self-awareness, of actually taking the moment to reflect and introspect and ask, how am I feeling? How is my life crafted? I just want to underline some of what I'm hearing also about dreams changing. And I do agree with you, Will, that our generation, and maybe other generations before, this is just the only generation I'm a part of, and I've lived this experience. Perfection, dream job, like all your dreams will come true. And if they didn't, it's because you did something wrong. As opposed to dreams change. I was a theater maker, a choreographer, a professional performer. I was running a dance theater company in New York. I now run a consulting firm and we do business transformation. So I know that journey of I'm living my dream and yet there's something missing. And so I need to go quest for something new. And I'm really happy to hear others also experiencing some of this, and we're sharing it with our attendees, that there are many paths to take from that undergrad, master's, or even PhD, investing many, many years into a particular career. So maybe it's a good time for us to shift to our third act as we prepare for Q&A from our attendees. What to look out for? What have you, in charting your path thus far to date, September 24th, 2025, where we find ourselves, what would you recommend other people look out for as they journey on? I realize that question can actually also be sort of negative or positive, like look out for wolves, but also like look out for diamonds in the grass. There can be kind of a things, yeah.
I think I think one thing to look out for is the ways that you will change and the ways that your priorities will change. To be very concrete and a little bit gross and salesy, because I just deal with money all day long in my job and I'm okay with it. In my 20s, I was like, I don't care about what I earn at all. I absolutely love what I'm doing, and I studied World War II survivor testimony, actually, and comics. and I was just like super into it. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I love it. And then things sort of changed. I realized that I kind of was hungry for more. I had done the PhD and I had learned, and it wasn't enough. And being a professor wasn't enough. And then I got married and I have a toddler, and now I'm in sales and I have commission every month. And I'm all about earning as much as I can. And people don't say it because it's like kind of a thing, especially with academics. I tend to be a little careful, but it's the truth. Things change. You have different priorities. Maybe you have to take care of your parents. Maybe you have kids. Maybe you live in New York City, like whatever the case. And that's not the only priority. That's not all that changes, right? Money is an example that I've given, but there's so much else, right? Like quality of life, your partner, where are they? What are they doing, right? And so I do think, to me, that's been uh, a big part of it, and something I've had to come to terms with myself, because I really had my identity at Princeton. I was pretty firm in it. So it's been a learning journey. And there are days where I kind of miss that identity. And there's days where I have this new wonderful identity that I'm very excited about it.
Thank you, Charlotte. Other panelists? I mean, this can be a discussion. I don't want to.
On the point of like dreams changing, what I think of like what to look out for, I would say like look out for those moments of friction, like moments where like things don't feel right, and maybe that is because you things change and your priorities change, and so that becomes a moment of friction. Or it could be that you're just not like really fulfilled in the work that you're doing, because I feel like those types of moments to me have been signals for uh, a level of self awareness that I need to bring to. So sometimes those have been, okay, it's time to make a pivot. Or sometimes it's like, you know, maybe I'm not 100% fulfilled in my job every single day, but it affords me a lot of flexibility, or it allows for um, allows me to live a certain lifestyle, or allows for these other types of pursuits. So I would just look out for those moments of friction, and they're not always bad, but pay attention to them, because I think that there's something that you can learn and then adjust from.
Genevieve or Will, do you want to take this question before we open it up to our audience?
Yeah, I guess I would say, just in terms of kind of a dreams changing, I think that is definitely something that's definitely super resonant. Just in terms of like keeping, your job is just one part of your life. It's not this. I mean, for some people, it can be this end all be all. But I think what you were saying, Charlotte, there are all these different factors to consider, and what you really need to, try to be focused on is, what gives you your most fulfilled version of your life, and where to, and that's kind of, and that can change in different, in different, eras of your life, eras of your career. But I will also say, just things to look out for. I will say, look out for the good people. There are a lot of them. I think there are way more good people than there are bad. Um, and look out for people who will have your back. I mean, I think you'll know them when you see them. They're really good. And it's really helpful, to have coworkers that that stay with you even after you leave a place, and that they're not just work friends. It's really helpful when they're not just work friends, and they can help you transition into something else. You don't know who, what door may open through somebody else. It's just has been it's very, um I would just recommend surrounding yourself with people who want the best for you, and there are a lot of those people.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Will said. I think mentors have been key. in getting me where I am today. So having, just people who are sort of dedicated to, my success as well, people I could reach out to with any question, whether it's a professional question or academic question, and also not being afraid to ask for help, not being afraid to sort of like reach out to people on LinkedIn. That was something that I also learned in grad school, and I still do now. I just reach out to people. There are people who want to have conversations with you. I mean, you send 10 messages, at least three people would reply, and those three people, will say something that's really important or really impactful for you. So don't be afraid of rejection. Reach out to people. People have so much knowledge, and they're just kind people out there. Yeah.
I'm going to underline that. Thank you. Okay, we have some questions that have been submitted by our audience. And I'm going to start with something that's kind of tied into, Genevieve, what you just shared about LinkedIn and sending messages. What are your strategies for staying in touch with your network without being overbearing? Anyone can take this. I think that's just a really nice LinkedIn strategy, Genevieve, you just shared. Staying in touch with your network without being overbearing. Anybody have a good advice on this one?
I have gotten a little bit of like the too many LinkedIn messages from one person type of thing. So I know what the concern is there with being overbearing, because eventually, because the thing is that we are quite, everybody's quite busy. And we try to make time where we can. But I think that also kind of reading the room is going to be important. So like, I think when here I am talking about building network, but there's light touch ways that you can kind of still be in the orbit of somebody. And I think that would be like liking a post, commenting on a post. Like, it's not always like direct messages kind of thing. I have found with my network that I've built, they're always kind of there. I think you'll find an industry, I don't really think they like disappear. Like, you can message them like a year later and they might, they're going to answer. So I think the question feels a little bit like a question where you're thinking about like your advisor. How do you get feedback without like asking them too many times? I don't know that the question really applies in industry, because like you're so busy that I don't think you would end up being overbearing. So I've answered this in like a variety of ways. Overall, I don't think it's something to really worry about. That's like the end of my really long-winded, messy answer. I was thinking out loud.
We're on a journey together.
Will, Kurt, Genevieve, any comments on that?
I mean, I don't do it because I'm so nervous to post on LinkedIn a lot. But I know I have a friend who, posts, I think every 2 weeks. He posts something, a thought-provoking piece, or just a conversation, or ask questions, and people sort of like engage with his work. And that sort of helps with visibility. So he does that. I don't do that. So, that's another way, sort of engaging with your network by posting, reposting stuff as well.
Will, we have to hear from you after that, like body moment, mute, unmute.
I keep forgetting I'm Saunders. I'm visible. I know. I guess I didn't interpret it. I wasn't even thinking about like LinkedIn in terms of like engaging um your network, because I feel like I would agree with Charlotte that if like once you're kind of, especially in sales and in different industry, it doesn't really feel like you can be super overbearing. I mean, obviously, I feel like direct messaging, direct things to certain people, people can go overboard, but I think yeah, I'm not sure if there's a really easy r- really easy answer to this, but I think for me, you know, sometimes I feel like I always had a really uncomfortable um idea of what like networking meant in terms of that I've sometimes I felt like, oh, am I using this person to get something? And versus, and I kind of took a reframing of it of actually like it is super fun, to get to know people for where they are. I feel like I went on, 100 like different, tiger net interviews, cold calls, and people, number one, people love to talk about themselves, which is fantastic. And also, you get to know so many different people and learn so much about their experience that it actually was like that in and of itself was a really powerful learning experience. So I think for me, I don't really think of my network as something so calculated as opposed to something of like, you know, I engage, you meet these people through work, you make these connections, you become friends, you become work friends, and then kind of just part of how, your rapport happens to work. You're going to want to reach out to, to certain people, to keep up with certain people, to be I guess that's more of like, the in-person connection. I wasn't thinking so much on LinkedIn because I guess I don't post on LinkedIn at all, which maybe now I'm realizing maybe maybe I'm behind. But I guess that would be, I'm not sure if I answered the question at all, but that would be my word salad um response.
I I'm going to bring us another question. Yes to word salad response. Clarity all over the place. I think, okay. Advice. Here's another question that we got from our panel or of attendees. Any advice for a 50-year-old tenured professor in English who is there are many O's, over existing in the academic world?
I mean, I can't give the advice since I just started. So literally just started. So
That's just fine. I will shout out James Van Wyck then, who is a member of the Princeton Arts Alumni Board. To this anonymous question answerer, James is very good at navigating these types of pivots. And if you drop us a message, we can put you in contact with James and to go into more detail on that.
But it is never too late to leave. Get out if you don't like it. There's a whole world out here. For real.
Yep. I 100% agree. I mean, yeah, not at, I'm at a different stage in my career, but I believe that, like you're already taking the first step by being here tonight. And I think that you have a lot to offer and a lot of skills to bring. So I know that um, uh, there's so, you bring so much. So um, just keep asking the questions and keep just talking to people. And I think to the earlier question, like just ask people about how they got to where they did, and ask them about themselves. And I think that that will help to figure out how to figure out what your next step will be. Sorry, that was word salad too.
No, that was actually perfect, Kurt. It transitions into our penultimate question from our attendees, which is, how did you learn about various opportunities? This is kind of drilling a little bit deeper on the transition from academia into industry. So I'll direct this at Kurt and Charlotte. How did you learn about various opportunities in industry? How did you pitch yourself from academia? It's a bundle question into various industries. And are employers eager to hire someone who may be overqualified for the job? If you could share a little bit of like specifics, how did you tactically go from academia to industry?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer. As I said, Jen, my student at Princeton, got me my first industry job, which is the crappiest answer to give if you're trying to pivot, because it's like I had a friend who, got me the job. My resume was awful, that I had put together from my CV, just horrific looking back. So one thing to do is actually really work on your resume. And when I say work on it like 600 times. No, what I mean is hire somebody. That's what I mean. Outsource it. The smartest thing I could have done was outsourcing the resume and getting a career coach, and I did not do it. But beyond that, I got my other jobs through recruiters. So once you break through, and I would highly recommend using Well Found, which used to be called Angel List, and it's where you can get startup jobs. And it's a really good place. Other than that, it would be networking. So message me. Hello, I do help connect people. Um, and thinking outside the box. So I applied to a lot of jobs as a professor. I was like, I'm definitely going to get it. I got like nothing. I mean, nothing. I applied to like 100 jobs. I don't think I got an interview. So that's not to discourage you. It's to say first of all, message me if you want help, but there are strategies, like outsourcing help and talking to people. I didn't talk to anybody. I was too afraid to talk to people. And that was the biggest mistake I made. I should have gone on LinkedIn. I should have done that. So you have to put yourself out there. You have to clean up all of your materials, and you don't apply on LinkedIn. You're probably not going to get a job through LinkedIn. You know, maybe you will, but there's other sites like Well Found, and there's other places where you can look. And then what was the other part of the question? There was one part I didn't answer. Overqualified. I actually don't think that's like a thing. Like from what my experience has been, I'm typically underqualified for, like, I had thought about finance jobs. I could not get my foot in the door there. In terms of overqualified, I just came to the interview, again, this might be annoying, but with like a ton of energy, a ton of enthusiasm, um, and like just a can-do type of attitude and a lot of confidence. And it works. So I don't think I don't think it's really that much of a thing. Although I will say I know somebody who applied to Whole Foods with their PhD and they did not get an interview. And I think that was like an overqualification thing. So it depends where you're applying, honestly. But yeah.
Thank you, Charlotte. Kurt, yep, over to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I also got the overqualified line a couple of times. And I think, like Charlotte, I think the strategy that I used was just to like kill them with enthusiasm and be like, just disarm that, because what they're really saying is they're like, oh my God, you went to Princeton or you have a PhD and I don't know how to relate to you. I can't conceptualize what it would mean to have you as a coworker or on my team. So you just have to disarm that. And you do that by showing that you're personable and that you are excited about the organization and its mission, or whatever it's accomplishing. I think, and that you are willing to learn. I think that's the other thing, is that they think, when I've heard overqualified, the prejudice is that you are inflexible and you won't want to learn. And so if you can show examples and tell how you're willing to learn, I think that's a big part of it. And I would also echo everything Charlotte said. I think I wish I had worked with a resume coach so much earlier. I think I suffered in silence and I was like afraid to. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to talk to people. Don't be afraid to use whether the career center or a resume coach or somebody. Yeah, just don't suffer in silence.
One of the ways that people get ahead in industry is by outsourcing stuff. Like, so you have to think creatively, where can you use help and what do you not know, right? And so as a PhD, you're trained to do everything yourself. And in industry, people do not do it all themselves. I can tell you that. Yeah.
Okay. So we've come to our final question. We talked about what you love, what you've learned, what people should look out for. I'd love to do a brief lightning round of what are you looking forward to? Charlotte, Kurt, Will, Genevieve, either in the year ahead, the years ahead, as you craft and navigate your career. Okay. Forward looking a bit.
Having my own company. That's definitely what I want to do. And I'm just gaining experience and I'm going to do that. And I'm really psyched for it, because I will say, as a former I find it hard to have a boss. I really do. It's not my favorite thing. So I'll be my own. Yeah.
Thank you, Charlotte. Will Genevieve Kurt, who's next? What you're looking forward to? Also, attendees should know I did not tell them I was going to ask them this question, so this is totally out of left field.
I will say, so I actually this is pretty mundane, but the thing that I'm looking forward to. So I actually just pivoted, doing a similar role, but at a different company. And I'm very excited just kind of um, planting some deeper roots here and getting more accustomed. I've been working here now for 4 months. I guess that's the thing that I'm most excited about, getting to know a lot more people. So I'm fully remote. I'm based in Minnesota. The job is in New York. So I'm also super excited. I'll be flying that kind of back and forth. And that's something I'm super excited about. Being able to see a lot of people get some good FaceTime in and still be in kind of two places at once.
I would say I am looking forward to um, I'm playing around with kind of writing a book about frequent flyer miles and the history of this, and it's kind of combining my day job with the kind of humanities historical like historians training, and kind of taking a like look behind the curtain of like, well, how did this world come to be and like what are the stakes of that, and it feels very familiar like as an academic, and I'm not really sure where the path will take me, but I'm just kind of looking forward to continuing to play around with that.
So for me, next semester, I'm teaching a music industry course. So I'm sort of excited about the guests who work in the music industry are going to come talk to the students and all the reading we're going to do as well. So yeah.
Excellent. I want to thank all of our panelists, Genevieve, Kurt, Will, Charlotte, sharing your wisdom, your insights, your experiences today. Much appreciated. And to our attendees who were here with us live, sharing questions and an hour of your evening or late afternoon. And to all of you who maybe sat watching this as a recording in the future, here's a message from us in the past. And I am Pilar, founder of Princeton Arts Alumni. Check us out, princetonartsalumni.org. Follow us on socials, whether or not you are a member of the Princeton community or just a member of the art world at large. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.